This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good evening. Hope everyone is well.
C'est bon.
Thank you for your in-person attendance. As we also have two commissioners online with us, Commissioner Bill Johnson, Commissioner Parker. We'll get to that. I want to welcome everyone and thank you again for your attendance in tonight's special meeting of the Board of Commissioners. That being said, this meeting is now called to order.
So you want to establish a quorum and then we need to invite.
So good evening, Chair Jackson. You do have a quorum at this time in person, and we can now move to vote Commissioner Parker in to virtual attendance.
All right.
So Commissioner Parker, do you mind to state the reason for why you're being virtual and your location? You're on mute, Commissioner Parker.
Commissioner Parker, you're on mute.
I don't know if he can. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, Patrick, I'm at home and I'm coming out of COVID, and so I didn't want to be around you guys. So I'm at home with COVID and quarantining.
Yes, sir. We understand and appreciate that. Hope you feel better, Commissioner Parker.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to admit Commissioner Parker into the meeting tonight?
So moved.
Back. We'll have Commissioner Elliott. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner McCray. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner McCray,
Aye.
Commissioner Pitchford.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Commissioner Parker can attend the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. With that being said, we will turn the meeting over to our esteemed attorney, Mr. George Martin.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have promised the chairman that we will conclude by 6:30. And I like to keep my
Amen.
word, so we are going to finish by 6:30.
Good.
So just by background, we're going to have a training on governance for the board. And just to let you know candidly why I was asked to do this, I serve as co-chair of the governance committee of a publicly traded company, served as rector, which is the same as chairman of the Board of Visitors at the University of Virginia, and I currently chair UVA's think tank, and I chaired the governance committee at the University of Virginia, and I also serve on UVA's the University of Virginia Investment Management Company, which is a company that manages our $17 billion endowment. So we've done a lot of things, quite candidly, in the field of governance. And this is a very important topic for this board. It's something that we need to certify that you all have received this training. So with that, I'm going to get started. And the first topic we're going to talk about is fiduciary duty. Fiduciary duty is defined as the duty of utmost loyalty and care. And it is the highest duty in the law. There is no duty in the law that is higher than a fiduciary duty. And essentially what a fiduciary duty means is you have to put your own interest has to be subordinate to the interest of the organization. So in this context, that means the mission of the authority and your role as a commissioner has to take priority over your personal interest. And it is a common practice for folks to understand that if they have a conflict, you have to make sure that you disclose that conflict and abstain. So what is a conflict? So say, for example, we're going to pick on Patrick. Let's say Patrick works for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and the authority is entering into a contract with the Times-Dispatch. He would have to disclose that relationship and abstain from voting on that matter. And so I would recommend that if you ever have a question as to whether or not you have a conflict, please don't hesitate to come to me and ask me about it. Another example of a conflict, if you are on a board, and let's say it is a board you're not getting paid for, but you're still on a board, and the authority is going to enter into a contractual relationship with that entity. Likewise, you have a conflict, and you should disclose it, and you should abstain. And it is actually, when you abstain, you need to state on the record why you are abstaining from voting. So any questions about that so far? Okay. So fiduciary duty is the duty that applies to all boards, whether it's a corporate board, whether it's a not-profit board, regardless of the institution. Fiduciary duty applies to all board members, directors of all boards. And it is something that the law takes very, very seriously. And you have, a very serious responsibility. It is one of stewardship, one of trust. And you must keep in mind the fact that in protecting the organization, by adhering to the fiduciary duty, you are protecting the organization. Okay, so I've given you a couple of examples, and let me do this. I'm going to hand out, got enough of these. This is a document that basically defines fiduciary duty, and it's very short. So the other thing that fiduciary duty applies to is basically information that you are privy to because of your role on this board. So there are plenty of instances where you will be given information that is confidential. And it is important for you to guard that information and not share it with anyone outside of the organization. The other reason why that is important is there are a couple of reasons. One is the Freedom of Information Act, and then the other is the attorney-client privilege. So when I give you advice, or when Patrick gives you advice, or we give you a document that includes legal advice, that is protected by the attorney-client privilege. But to the extent that you give that to a third party or share it with the third party, you run the risk. It's not automatic, but you run the risk that you waive the attorney-client privilege. Now, one thing that's important is the lawyers cannot waive the attorney-client privilege, but the client can. It is a client's privilege, not the lawyer's privilege. And a lot of lawyers get that confused and they assert it, but case law is pretty clear. The privilege belongs to the client. And so that protects any communication between the lawyer and the client. So in other words, any advice that you get from lawyers or any questions you ask of a lawyer where you are seeking legal advice. And where it gets a little tricky is sometimes it's hard to distinguish between legal advice and business advice. So the privilege applies to legal advice, but if it's mixed, then you have an argument that it still applies. Okay. So I forgot to mention this. So what I'd like to do is go through this, and if you have questions, if you could write your questions down, and we can have a closed session. And the reason I say that is because I'm probably going to be giving you legal advice and answering your questions, and that's covered. Okay. So the challenge with the authority, I think, though, is you want to be as transparent as possible because you are a public body. But you also need to remember you are not elected officials. You're not legislators. Okay, this is a policy board. And there are things that politicians do and can do that you can't do. Okay, I mean, they obviously owe a duty to elect them. You don't have constituents like that. You don't have that elect you. You are appointed to this board, and you are here to in furtherance of the mission of the organization. So your duty is to the organization. I'm sorry. Let me put this, okay. Your duty is to the organization. And if you ever have any question about that, feel free to ask. So one of the things that we like to talk about in terms of governance, the role of directors, the role of commissioners is nose in, fingers off. And by that, what we mean is you are within your rights, in fact, it's your duty to ask questions, okay? But it is not your responsibility to fingers in other words, put your hand in and manage the organization. But it is absolutely essential that you ask questions, and it is permitted for you to ask questions. Management is within the realm of the CEO and his team, but it is certainly okay for the board to ask tough questions. And in fact, quite candidly, you're expected to ask tough questions. You also set policy. And policy obviously can have an impact on day-to-day, but it's not your role to be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the organization. And I would warn you that a lot of times boards engage in what's known as micromanagement, and that really is dangerous. And it is, I could go into just a little more detail when we go into closed session, but it is particularly dangerous if you ever get sued. Okay. So essentially, that is at a very high level what is expected of the board. Now, you're obviously subject to regulation by HUD, and you are a political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that is a little confusing at times because you are appointed by the city council, and some feel like you are a subdivision of the city, but you're not a subdivision of the city. You're a subdivision of the Commonwealth. However, you are, for legal purposes, treated like a local government, just like a city. And what does that mean? So with respect to immunity, for example, the organization has governmental immunity. The state of Virginia has sovereign immunity, which means that they cannot be sued for any tort action unless they agree or consent to be sued. This authority can be sued if the activity is deemed proprietary. And if it's deemed governmental, you have immunity. If it's deemed proprietary, you can be sued. So that's where you're different from the state. And that's the same for a city. Counties are different. They have sovereign immunity. And the reason for that is because cities and towns are have charters, but counties don't have charters. And that's just, a quirk, if you will, in the law. So they have sovereign immunity, cities don't, and this authority does not have sovereign immunity, of governmental immunity. There is a case that set the precedent, and it involved a redevelopment authority in Tidewater. And I think candidly, the court, it doesn't matter what I agree with, it's the law. But the court concluded that because redevelopment authorities were standing in the shoes of landlords, it was proprietary activity, and therefore they could be sued. There have been some instances where courts have taken that too far, and they've said that everything that authorities do falls into the category of proprietary. But the case only talks about the authority functioning as a landlord. Okay. So, I think that's flawed analysis, but I'm not the judge. And the reason I say that is because obviously your role as landlord is public housing. And that is a public mission as opposed to proprietary. But anyway, the law is the law, and we have to abide by that. So Title 36 is the code of Virginia that governs redevelopment and housing authorities. And the code is pretty clear in terms of the division of labor between, the code speaks of an executive director. Several years ago, this authority decided to change that title to CEO, but at the code, it says executive director, but it's the same thing. What is the responsibility of the CEO and what is the responsibility of the board? And to some limited extent, there are things that you can delegate to the CEO that you don't have to oversee. But if you do that, you have to be very specific as to what that delegation might be. So for example, if we were having a closing and we had near final documents, but they're not quite final, you can delegate to the CEO the authority to execute the documents and approve the final changes. Or you can say, no, we want you to bring it back to us and we'll review it. Obviously, a lot of times, just because of time, it is more expedient to delegate, and especially if the changes are not substantial. But that's a delegation that you can make to your CEO. Okay. So Title 36, and then we also have your bylaws and we have HUD regulations. The good news is if you stay in your lane, you don't have any exposure, if you will, for something that happens, as long as you stay in your lane, which is one of the reasons why micromanagement is dangerous, because if you roll over into the realm of management, you might be candidly sued individually. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about is a code of conduct. And your previous chair asked us to look at the possibility of having a code of conduct, and your current chair reinforced that. So I'm going to hand out this resolution, which addresses, it's a very simple resolution that addresses code of conduct. Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, okay, sure. So under the code of conduct, the first topic is fiduciary duty, which is what we just discussed. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. You've got it in front of you, but I am going to read you what it says for fiduciary duty. It says, commissioners shall hold the highest duties of loyalty and care, uphold the highest duties of loyalty and care, placing the interests of RRHA and the residents it serves above personal, professional, or financial interests. Commissioners shall act prudently, exercise independent judgment, maintain appropriate confidentiality, and make informed decisions that advance the mission and long-term well-being of RRHA. The next topic is conflict of interest, which we've discussed. And then the next is the role of the chair. And all this says basically is that the chair is the official spokesperson for the board. Thank you. And then professionalism, dignity, and respect. And that is that the commissioner shall maintain a respectful environment at all times, treating all individuals with dignity and courtesy, and refraining from conduct that undermines the integrity of the board. The next topic is attendance of meetings, which is obviously very, very important. And then collaboration with the CEO in furtherance of the mission. Compliance with all laws that are applicable, which includes HUD regulations, RRHA policies, bylaws, and then good faith. And that is that commissioners will act in good faith at all times. And I should add, it's somewhat related, but in the law of contracts, there is an underlying assumption that everybody in a contractual relationship will act in good faith. And then commitment to the mission of the authority. And then resignation if a commissioner is unable to comply with the code of conduct. So that is a recommendation for your consideration. So I think it's now appropriate, Mr. Chair, if you are comfortable that we go into closed session. And that way I can answer any questions that you all might have and give you legal advice.
All right, yes, sir. And thank you.
Sure. Well, you don't have to, because I'm not going to let you.
Okay. We've gone into closed session before,
Yeah.
talked about stuff.
Well,
Into these kinds of things.
not with me, but I'm not going to let you do that.
I
And,
have two questions
okay, well, what we can do is let's go into closed session.
that are not.
No, let me hear me out. And afterwards we'll come out, and because what I'm going to do is if someone raises a question in closed session that's not appropriate, I will say that's not appropriate and we'll answer it in open session.
This is.
Well,
My two
no,
questions
no.
are, is there a definition for good faith? Second one is this a contractual relationship?
Okay, the answer to your question is yes, there is a definition of good faith. Okay, and this is not a contractual relationship. That was an analogy.
That's it. Those are my two questions.
Okay, what I'm saying is you may have other questions in closed session. And if we deem that they're not appropriate for closed session, we'll come back and answer them in open session. So I think we covered what we anticipated.
All right.
Right,
Yes, sir.
okay. I move that we go into closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice, specifically matters related to the Board of Commissioners, governance and responsibilities, and the proposed Board of Commissioners Code of Conduct as permitted by Section 2.2-3711A8 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
Okay, there's been a proper motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Brody. Since we have commissioners online, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Parker,
Aye.
Commissioner Brody, Commissioner Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Hardeman, Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner McCray,
Aye.
and Commissioner Pitchford. The ayes have it. We're in closed session.
Okay, I would ask all of the non-commissioners if you would excuse yourselves and we'll just meet with the commissioners. Except for Patrick.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so now that we've exited the closed session, I'm going to read the certification of closed meeting. So whereas the Board of Commissioners of Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia of 1950, as amended, requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Brody, is there a second?
I second it.
Commissioner Lewis, or do a roll call vote. Commissioner Brody,
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Hardeman,
No, we had a policy conversation in closed session that the public should have been a part of.
that'll be recorded for the minutes. Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCray,
Aye.
Commissioner Parker,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis, and Commissioner Pitchford.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Certification of the closed meeting. We're out of closed meeting now. Thank you.
All right, we want to thank you, George, for your time. Thank you each for your time. Were there any questions that we can discuss now that we're out of closed session? Anybody have any further questions? All right,
Nope.
all right.
Staff gonna come back, so.
I don't know.
So before we depart, just want to take the opportunity to reiterate the need for our attendance. Obviously, things come up. We have parents, we have emergencies, we have life that we deal with on a daily basis. But as George shared with us prior to going into closed session, this should be our priority. None of us are being questioned. That's not what this is. This is not a reprimand. But when we don't have a quorum, we're not able to have meetings. We're not able to be proficient in the fiduciary duties that we have. And so I'm asking each of you to be mindful of that oath and the responsibility. Things are going to come up. Not asking to ignore life's challenges over attending a meeting. But at all cost, if you will make this a priority so that we can maintain efficiency and get our work done.
Okay, so I don't mean to cut you off.
Yes, ma'am.
I have already spoke on this in the past and way before I got far along the way I am as a commissioner, and I said it to the CEO that somebody need to either hire somebody to watch over your children for the mothers or the dads that have to bring their children.
Yeah.
I am one of them. I have 4. I don't have a husband. I don't have a significant other to watch my children to come to a board meeting at 5:30 all the way to 9 o'clock at night.
And that's understandable. Those are circumstances that we can't always control. But if we know ahead of time, because I brought my daughter, Hardeman
But
brought his daughter.
who wants to bring their kids to sit for hours? My son is not going to be able to sit for 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
He's autistic.
Yeah, and I understand there are limitations. And this is by no means, is this conversation for any one person in particular? Because we all have 6 children. So I get it.
But a lot of everybody sitting at this table have help as well.
And I understand
They have
that.
husbands and wives.
So
I don't.
But what I don't want to do is make anyone feel aimed at, because you're not being aimed at. What I'm trying to do is move our organization. And again, you're going to have those times where you're going to miss the board meeting because you have an obligation, and your first responsibility
It's my children.
is being a mother.
Absolutely.
That's
My
your
kids
first.
come first.
Absolutely. This is just a reminder. The reason that attendance has been put in there is because a number of times, and even if you are absent by yourself, that will not make us not have a quorum. So it's not directed toward any one person. So again, as a collective body, if we can try to, hey, let me see if I can move over this way to still make this meeting and then come back, if that's possible, let's do that. Well, we said we would do this, all of us, each one of us, right? And we can't always control the length of our meetings. We want to be as efficient. I tell you what does add to the length of our meetings, going over now, is when we don't have a quorum for 4 or 5 meetings in a row, and we got 4 or 5, 6, agendas to vote on. And it just, it's, so we're creating a backlog for ourselves. And this is just a reminder. That's it.
I understand what you're saying, because when I was property management, it was a lot of times
Yeah.
I didn't have a quorum. But nevertheless, I just think that we're all adults. And I don't think any commissioner on this board, if they're not here, it's for a reason. It's for a good reason. I don't think that this board just don't decide to get up in the morning, oh, I'm not going to the commissioner meeting.
Right.
I really don't think that that's the case on this board.
Right. And I agree with you. It's not personal.
Right.
It's not personal. We should not receive it as such. If it were a job, we got to figure out a way to explain to our supervisors or work around how to still get my job done. That's it. We're approaching this as mature professionals. And I got obligations just like all of us,
Right.
and I gotta handle it the best I can.
But
Or
sometimes,
if I can't, I have to do something different.
yeah, but sometimes when dates are being made, it would be helpful to me to have optionals and see what the board, and see the see what everybody is more convenient to come instead of just setting a date around that particular time or whatever. Give us options, give us 2 dates because we might can't come to one date, but I'm quite sure if we had another date, unless that's it's so urgent, you can't do that.
Yeah, and so what we will do is communicate that to our CEO, because those dates don't come from the chairperson. Those dates, I believe Miss Priscilla sends out emails and she asks. And so that's an easy something to deal with. If it doesn't work, we just speak up and we move to it. We got a quorum or a majority. Okay.
And I will say too, just so everyone knows, some of the rules that are in place, it's not, and I guess not so much directed from the chair either. We have to follow and be compliant with the law. So like for virtual attendance, that 3 meetings per year is set by the law. So there's nothing that we can do as the board, there's nothing that the chair can do. That is something that the state mandates for all boards across the Commonwealth. And so that's something that we just have to be compliant with, or you all have to be compliant with as a board. And to that point as well, with the committee assignments, and one thing I did want to mention tonight is please take a look at your committee assignments. I know that we worked through a new calendar change and meeting schedule. So if you feel like, okay, I may serve on real estate, but I can't really make those meetings, but I can maybe make property management, then we could work through with you all as commissioners and determine the placement and keep each committee at 5 members. So, if you all can just take a look at it, let us know what would maybe work better for you all now that we've done a new committee schedule, and we can talk through that and discuss that with everyone.
That's a good suggestion. That's a good
Okay.
suggestion.
Unless if the exemption would be medical, it's just solely personal or business, but if it's medical, it's exempted from that 3.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I just want to be on the property management. I don't want to be on all of them no more.
Yeah. No, we'll just save that. Oh. All right, if that be all the questions, gentlemen online, unless you have a comment or question, we are going to adjourn our meeting. All right, hearing nothing, this meeting is adjourned, and thank you all.
There you go. You're welcome.
He got good. That's how you got it.
So is this going back to the grievance board? Is this?
I don't know what we're gonna do right now. We're just gonna see if we, at some point, if we, we're not trying to do anything new, but I think we need to, this originated, we're not following all of our protocols. And we're just trying to keep it in the line
Right.
so that we can.
Well, let me give you some history.
I already, trust me.
Give me a little history why the board is like this. I don't know how they feel. I'm not speaking on it. But the history is